Over the last 12 months, we have seen a catalogue of protests throughout the world of football. In a year that began with angry Marseille fans storming their own club's training ground with smoke bombs and stealing Andre Villas-Boas' briefcase, we have also seen Oldham Athletic fans protesting their club's perilous future, featuring a coffin, Valencia fans continuing to voice their displeasure at the way in which Peter Lim is running the club, and, perhaps most notably of all, the widespread protests at a string of some of the world's biggest football clubs over the proposed European Super League. Protest movements have achieved a great deal both within and outside of football over the years, and whilst it can be very difficult for disempowered football fans to rid their clubs of rotten ownership regimes these days, it seems highly probable that supporter backlash was key to undermining the Super League. Sometimes, though, fans become so disillusioned or angered with the way in which their clubs are run and feel so powerless to change things that they decide they have no other option but to sever all ties and to start a new club altogether. When football fans in England think of successful protest clubs, they probably think of AFC Wimbledon, who were founded in 2002 by Wimbledon FC fans protesting against their club relocating to Milton Keynes. Wimbledon have won 6 promotions since that separation and now compete in the same division as Milton Keynes, in addition to having moved into the new Plough Lane in Wimbledon just 12 months ago. But the Dons are far from the biggest or most successful protest club. Some of the biggest clubs in all of world football, including the likes of Borussia Dortmund, Bayern Munich, Inter Milan and Real Madrid, were all founded through infamous feuds and disagreements. So there is hope yet for Dial Square FC. In today's video, I'm focusing largely on teams whose presence doesn't loom quite so large over the world's most popular sport, following a string of requests from D-Gaming. A quick trigger warning before I begin to those who complain about any mingling of sport and politics, since I'm sorry to tell you that some protest clubs have been founded due to political disagreements. Shocking, I know, but there you have it. Here are 7 interesting examples of protest clubs in football. AFC Liverpool. Speaking of the wonderful city of Liverpool, it is a well-known fact that Anfield was originally the home of Everton. Anfield was owned by John Holding, a businessman, brewer, and Liverpool's Lord Mayor. Holding was also a conservative, and to many Everton fans, he was someone who was only interested in milking the club dry. The Toffees' annual rent at Anfield had risen from £100 in 1884 to £250 in 1892, and with the two parties unable to strike a deal over the sale or long-term lease of the ground, Everton purchased another plot of land on the other side of Stanley Park, where they built Goodison Park. Meanwhile, Holding founded a new club to play at Anfield, namely Liverpool FC. Almost 130 years later, Liverpool have become one of the most successful and left-leaning football clubs in Europe. But since 2008, there has been a new, rather less-known protest club on the block in Liverpool, who appear to take their commitment to collectivism even more seriously. AFC Liverpool were founded in response to the increased commercialisation of the Premier League, along with rising ticket prices at Anfield, and the difficulty that many fans were having in either affording or just managing to get hold of tickets. The A in AFC Liverpool doesn't actually stand for association, but for affordable, since the club's mantra is to create an environment in which particularly young people can always afford to attend a football match on a Saturday afternoon. Since they were founded in 2008, AFC Liverpool's ticket prices have remained frozen at £5. Meanwhile, a season ticket will set you back £80 for an adult, £35 for concessions, or £20 for under-18s. The club is also fan-owned, operating under a system of one member, one vote. The Little Reds, as they are known, won promotion to the 9th tier of English football last season, and they ground share with Marine AFC at Rossett Park in Crosby. AFC Liverpool do not have an overtly political message on their website, outside of football at least, but their club logo does look distinctly similar to that of a far-flung Soviet republic. There it is, next to the emblem of the Pridnestrovian Moldavian Soviet Socialist Republic, for example. Paris Football Club. Another protest club from a city that is far better associated with a much more successful side, Paris FC were originally founded in 1969, but merged with Stade Saint-Germain to form Paris Saint-Germain just a year later. However, 4 decades before the Qatari state acquired the club, PSG were relatively strapped for cash. The city of Paris refused to support the club since they were now based in Saint-Germain-en-Laye rather than within Paris's city walls. The result was a bitter split between the merged clubs, as Paris FC reformed in 1972 as a separate entity to PSG with the support of the city of Paris. And what a shirt that is. Paris FC retained professional status, a spot in the first division, and all of the club's professional players. Meanwhile, PSG suffered an enforced relegation down to the third tier of French football, inheriting only the team's amateur players. However, the two teams have had very different fates since then. Whilst Paris FC began the 1972-73 season competing in the top flight of French football and playing their home games at the Parc des Princes, just 2 seasons later, they were relegated, whilst PSG enjoyed a second successive promotion to take their place in what is now known as Ligue 1, acquiring the Parc des Princes during that same summer to add some extra salt to those wounds. Like their more successful neighbours, Paris FC are now also part-owned by a repressive, human rights abusing Gulf state looking to use them as little more than a billboard, as the Kingdom of Bahrain acquired a 20% stake in the club in July 2020. The city of Paris said that it was concerned about one of its football clubs being used for the purposes of sports washing. Yeah, probably a little bit late for that, guys. Unlike AFC Liverpool, Paris FC have traditionally been associated with more right-leaning politics, particularly through their Blue Wolves supporters group, who were forced to disband in 2010 following several hooligan incidents. Historically, this made Paris FC natural rivals of Red Star Paris, whose supporters have long been associated with left-wing, working-class, and anti-fascist tendencies. These days, Red Star compete in the Championnat National, France's third tier, Paris FC compete in Ligue 2, and PSG are obviously the dominant force within Ligue 1. FC United of Manchester. Founded in 2005, when Malcolm Glazer acquired a controlling stake in Manchester United, it is no secret what FC United of Manchester were founded in protest against. Whilst many football club owners are hailed as saviours upon their arrival, only for that relationship with fans to sour in light of subsequent events, the manner in which Malcolm Glazer acquired Manchester United meant that his arrival at Old Trafford was immediately unpopular right from the word go. Whilst many Manchester United fans took to protesting at the club's ground with a green and yellow inspired Love United Hate Glazer campaign which harked back to the club's original colours, some went a little further than that. There had been talk of disgruntled Manchester United supporters forming a fan-owned breakaway club as early as 1998, when the Devil's spawn, Rupert Murdoch and B-Sky B, attempted to take over the club. Manchester United fanzine Red Issue resurfaced the idea in February 2005 though, and within months, the club had been founded. After the FA rejected their proposal to be called FC United, supporters voted on the name FC United of Manchester, with 900 players taking part in trials to play for the club within days of that announcement. FC United are still fan-owned, now the largest fan-owned football club in England based upon membership numbers, with more than 5,000 fully paid-up members able to vote on how the club is run. The club enjoys fantastic support by non-league standards, though that has dwindled somewhat since the club's 2016 crisis when a number of board members resigned. Having started life ground sharing with Bury at Gig Lane, FC United moved into their own home ground, named Broadhurst Park, in 2005. Hapoel Jerusalem FC. In 1926, the Histadrut, which is Israel's national trade union centre, representing the majority of the country's trade unionists, founded a football club named Hapoel Jerusalem. The club was intended to represent the organisation's socialist values, and within a decade, Hapoel had very obvious rivals right on their own doorstep. Not only were Beitar Jerusalem local rivals, the club was founded with close links to the Irgun, a Zionist paramilitary organisation associated with Israel's revisionist movement. Albert Einstein likened Irgun to the Nazis and other European fascist organisations of the 1930s and 40s. and the group was an early predecessor to the right-wing Herut and later Likud political parties which have dominated the last 40 to 50 years of Israeli politics. Over the years, Hapoel struggled to keep up with Beitar, dropping out of the Israeli Premier League altogether in the 1999-2000 season. In 2007, following years protesting the club's management and a second relegation into the third tier of Israeli football, disgruntled Hapoel fans decided to start their own team. Whilst many Hapoel fans initially criticised the Breakaway club, eventually Hapoel Jerusalem's attendances came to outnumber that of the original club. In 2019, the original Hapoel Jerusalem disbanded, and a year later, Hapoel Jerusalem renamed themselves Hapoel Jerusalem, taking the name of the original club. I know that might be a bit confusing, but Hapoel ultimately toppled the club that they formed as a protest against, and last season they returned to the Israeli Premier League for the first time since 2000. Whilst Hapoel have largely retained their socialist principles, if anything, the politics of Beitar have become even more extreme. Beitar fans, and particularly the club's ultra-nationalist La Familia Ultras, have long boasted that they are the most racist club in the world, shouting chants such as "Death to Arabs" and "May your village burn, no longer will the Arabs be here," with the club never having employed an Arab and with violent protests whenever they have hired Muslim players. Or even Ali Mohammed, a Christian from Niger who fans demanded change his name because Mohammed sounded too Muslim. Last month, Hapoel and Beitar met in the league for the first time in over 20 years, with Hapoel emerging victorious courtesy of a 94th minute injury time winner. Bangor 1876 FC. Founded in 1876, Bangor City is among the oldest football clubs in the world, based in the oldest city in Wales. 3-time Cymru Premier champions and 8-time Welsh Cup winners, in Bangor's first European tie in the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup in 1962, they beat Napoli 2-0. However, in recent years, the club from the coastal cathedral city in northwest Wales has fallen upon hard times. In 2016, a company called VSM, or Vaughan Sports Management, took over the club. Fans were concerned about the presence of Stephen Vaughan Sr. at Nantporth, a convicted criminal who was banned from being a company director in the United Kingdom in 2010. Chairman Ivor Jenkins insisted that Vaughan wasn't involved in the running of the club, but those claims rang rather hollow when his son and fellow convicted criminal Stephen Vaughan Jr. was appointed as Bangor's new director of football and as a coach. Supporters were right to be concerned, and in 2018, Bangor had their Tier 1 and UEFA licences revoked through failure to meet the financial criteria, meaning that they were relegated despite finishing as runners-up in the previous season. Within months, Bangor were facing their second winding-up order from HMRC, with their very existence now coming under threat. In response, the Club Supporters Association voted in April 2019 to form a breakaway club, in protest of VSM's management of the club, but also to ensure a future for football within the city. In 2019-20, Bangor 1876 entered both men and women's teams into the Welsh Football League pyramid, with the men's team playing their first pre-season friendly against fellow fan-owned protest club FC United of Manchester. Crowned as champions on a points-per-game basis in their debut campaign, Bangor 1876 now compete in the North Wales Coast West Football League, which is the fourth tier of Welsh football. Bangor City, meanwhile, continue to compete in the Cymru North, Welsh football's second tier, with VSM having left the club, replaced by a consortium led by the musician Domenico Serafino not long after Bangor 1876 were founded. Serafino became involved with the club because his son Francesco was playing for Bangor at the time, but his son has since departed, and just last month, the club was threatened with being banned from playing any football in Wales unless they paid over £50,000 in unpaid wages to staff and players. Cruzeiro. I said I wasn't going to include super clubs like Bayern Munich and Real Madrid during the introduction, but Cruzeiro are certainly the biggest club to feature. Part of Brazil's G12, Cruzeiro are 4-time Brazilian champions, 38-time Campeonato Mineiro winners, and they were crowned champions of South American club football twice by virtue of winning the Copa Libertadores in 1976 and 1997. And yet, all of that success at a club that has employed the likes of Tostão, Jairzinho, Ronaldo and Rivaldo came about solely because of a dispute over the management of a club that you have almost certainly never heard of. Yale Atletico Clube were founded by an Englishman but to serve Italian immigrants in Belo Horizonte in 1910 and competed in the Campeonato Mineiro until 1925. During a crisis among the club's administration in 1921, though, workers from Agustin Ranieri's sporting goods and footwear factory decided to found their own club to rival Yale, namely Palestra Italia, owing to the club's Italian roots. However, when Brazil entered World War II in 1942 on the side of the Allies, the federal government made it illegal for any Brazilian entities to include the names of enemy nations. That meant Palestra Italia needed a new name, briefly becoming Sociedade Esportiva Palestra Mineiro before settling on the name Cruzeiro and adopting the colours of the Italian national team, namely blue and white, to appease the Italian faction of the club. AC Omonia. We end with two protest clubs for the price of one, as if AC Omonia alone aren't enough. The most successful and popular club in Cyprus, APOEL Nicosia, were founded in 1926 by a small group of people who wanted to create a football club representing the Cypriot capital's Greek population, and one which would promote enosis, incorporating all of Cyprus into Greece. In 1948, during the third phase of the Greek Civil War, APOEL sent the Hellenic Association of Amateur Athletics a telegram describing their wish for the, quote, communist mutiny, end quote, to be ended. When a number of players complained about the club adopting an overtly political stance that differed from their own, APOEL expelled them. As such, in 1948, Dr. Mateos Papapetrou founded AC Omonia, and along with a string of other leftist clubs, they helped create the Breakaway Cyprus Amateur Football Federation. For 5 years, these two organisations, representing left and right-wing politics in Cyprus, ran separately alongside one another. When the league system was reunified in 1953, Omonia joined the Cypriot First Division, which they have since won 21 times. Over 80% of Omonia fans still associate themselves with Cyprus's Marxist-Leninist Communist Progressive Party of Working People, putting them in direct opposition with the right-wing sentiments expressed by many APOEL fans. The two teams are bitter rivals, and the two most successful clubs on the island of Cyprus. In the early 2010s, Omonia fell into a deep financial crisis, at the same time as the Cypriot and Greek economies did likewise. In 2017-18, Omonia finished 6th, which represented their worst season of the modern era. That prompted a vote in favour of US-based Cypriot businessman Stavros Papastavroou being allowed to take private ownership of the previously fan-owned club, which angered a number of supporters, including many among the club's Gate 9 ultras who responded by founding their own club. Omonia May 29th Athletic People's Association might only have been founded in 2018, but they have already won 4 trophies, including a third-tier title last season, meaning that they now compete in the Cypriot Second Division, where they currently sit in mid-table. You may notice that their badge bears some resemblance to the Soviet-style imagery of our first entrance, AFC Liverpool. So yes, we end with a protest club founded by Marxist-Leninists in opposition to another protest club founded by communists betraying their founding principles. So that is it for today's video. Thank you all very much as ever for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed today's video, or, the downvote if you wish to stage your own protest, or, just go off and start your own channel. Why not? That would be better, more preferable, assuming that the downvote actually does any harm. I don't know. Anyway, leave a comment if you have anything of interest to say, unlike me, and make sure that you are subscribed, of course, and have notifications turned on for HITC Sevens. You can also find me on Twitter and on Instagram via the username @HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.